Tindy C. This is Radio Fox.
Hello, I'm Tindy C, and a big warm welcome to the Tindy C Show on Sunday, the 1st of July. This is your number one radio station in hospital, Radio Fox. And thank you to Catherine for the last 2 hours. And in the first part of my show, I'll bring you Talk, where I chat to our special guest, confidence and assertiveness guru, Janet Hills. And then later on in the show, I'll bring you Desi Fever, where I play you music from the Bhangra, Bollywood and urban music scene and keep you informed on all the latest goings on. And I'll also be catching up with the godfather of Bhangra music himself, Janni Singh, who's recently been awarded an OBE. Now let's kick off with a bit of Survivor. That's a very good track choice for this hour, because those of you in hospital who may have had illnesses or injuries, it may actually in turn affect your confidence or assertiveness, or anyone may require a little bit of help in general in these areas. Now, Janet Hills is a tutor taking a course at Vaughan College in Leicester entitled How to Become More Assertive and Confident. She has a wealth of experience in psychology, counselling and teaching. Hello, Janet. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks, Tindy.
Oh, well, I'm going to call you our assertiveness and confidence guru for this hour, yeah? How do you feel about that?
Oh, feels wonderful.
Well, that was quite an apt tune to start off with, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Now, anyone would think that such a course is not for them, and only a certain type of person would maybe attend such a course. Now, is that a common misconception?
Yeah, I think it is actually, especially for people who are thinking about enrolling on one of these courses. But often when people actually arrive and they look around at the other people that are there, they often kind of wonder, sort of see the outside of people, seeing them looking, to their eyes completely confident, and wonder if they could possibly feel like they do inside. So I think it's quite common for people actually to be able to function quite well in some areas of their lives and to all intents and purposes look as if they're fine, but actually inside not always feel like that.
No, that definitely is something. So do you find that sort of a vast variety of different people would attend a course like this? Have you found in your experience that's been the case?
Yeah, it's absolutely a very rich mix of people.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Different ages, male, female, different backgrounds, all sorts of different reasons for actually going to a course like this.
Okay, and it's quite a brave step, isn't it, to actually enlist on such a course and take that step?
Yeah, I think it is. I think for some people it's probably the most assertive and confidence testing thing they actually do, is to actually get themselves to the course in the first place, actually.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, now let's look at confidence first.
Yeah.
Now, people often think those in the public are more confident. I mean, I present this radio show and do a range of other sort of activities and so forth, and I come across as very confident, but I know in reality it's not always that way. Now, is that a common thing again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that again is very common. Very often people can function very well in particular roles in their life that are familiar to them, maybe the work that they do sometimes, or some role they play within the family or the community, and the role often helps them function really well, genuinely well, but put them in a different context and they don't actually always feel that way.
Okay, so it's very, very common that people can sort of, even though they appear outwardly confident, that they can sort of be whatever inside.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes people can look to to someone watching them from the outside, look as if they're completely confident and would never be fazed by anything. But sometimes, like you've just said, underneath they could be having quite a wobble. Actually, it's deceptive.
Yeah, it took me a while to get used to sitting here, but I got there in the end. So how can people's confidence, how can it actually be affected by being in hospital? And for some, it is a very critical time, and for some it could be for a very long period of time. I mean, how does that affect it?
Well, I guess it depends on individual people, but I can imagine that for some people, that being in hospital for a long time, it stops them actually, they become out of touch with the role they normally play in life, maybe with the job they do or the role they play in their community. And that can be quite difficult, as if they lose the context and the familiarity with that role. So other people, it's what the reason that's brought them to hospital maybe mean that they can no longer do what they're actually used to doing in the world out there.
Right.
So that can be another problem, that they contemplate what life will be like if that's changed, sort of for in a permanent sort of way.
And I suppose that goes with people that have had like some very big injuries and so forth as well. It's a change of lifestyle, isn't it?
It can absolutely be a change of lifestyle for some people.
And if I was in that kind of position, would your advice be to possibly, look at issues more dealing sort of with what they've actually been through first before attending such a course? Or
Well, it depends on the individual, really. I mean, some people that they they may have been fine before the accident or the illness happened, and it may be that a course like the one I run might be absolutely the best place to go to actually find that what they're feeling isn't stupid, they're not being silly, they're not being weak or wimpy, to get the support of other people who've maybe had similar experiences in different contexts. So it could be a very good way to get started back in what's effectively going to be another lifestyle, really.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'll catch up with you in just a moment after this break. That's a bit of Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. And I mean, Janet, we're just having a quick laugh there, weren't we? Brilliant songs, eh?
Yeah, definitely, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, now many of us are aware that issues stem from childhood. Now, could you please give us some more details about this? Because a lot of people say that issues do stem from childhood, such as assertiveness or confidence issues and so forth. But could you elaborate on that a little bit for us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, not all of them do. Sometimes things, a single events happen to somebody later on in life that's really sort of damaged their confidence. But on the other hand, I think some people were brought up with quite a lot of criticism for what they did, or they were forever being compared with someone else who always did better, or this feeling that they never quite could do well enough, and that can go quite deep, and people end up with the belief that whatever they do, they're no good, they won't be good enough. And another aspect of that is sometimes the opposite of that sometimes people, when they were growing up, were held back by perhaps people around them who were scared on their behalf, who told them not to do that or to be careful.
So like too fearful.
Too fearful.
Okay.
Yeah. And that also, the opposite of being criticised for what you do is, the person that was held back from ever trying anything. So we go into adult life. Sometimes.
So can they be equally as damaging?
I think they can.
Okay.
They can in different ways, and some people get them both, of course.
Oh, bless.
So bless, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there any tips out there for the people sitting in the maternity ward, just having had their first baby?
Yes,
Any important do's and don'ts in this respect?
Gosh, well, I don't want to be totally quoted on this one forever, but
general advice.
But I think some of the things to kind of bear in mind, really, when we've got little new babies or new people. It's something a friend of mine once said. She said, look for the twinkle in the baby's eye. And what she meant by that is spotting what it is that really delights or excites a baby, even if they've done something you didn't want them to do or whatever. And it's like support that. It's like support that moment of real energy and delight in them. Because I think if we get that valued in us, it actually grows it grows inside us. So that's certainly one of the things.
Okay, so what if they do something sort of like that's wrong or naughty, maybe? What would be the best way to deal with that?
Well, it's difficult because obviously you've got to stop children doing things that harm them or harm other people or furniture or whatever. But I think it very rarely comes from in very small children and babies. It very rarely comes from an intention to do something bad. And I think it's on the one hand supporting their sort of what they were trying to do, whilst at the same time saying that they can't do that's not okay, and giving them something else to do instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now on the same kind of topic, but I mean, surely as an adult,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just blame somebody else forever, because some of these issues may stem from childhood, but surely you need to take responsibility.
Well, yeah.
And is it not the case of just valuing yourself first and the rest of the world will follow? Or, I mean, what's your advice for that?
Well, I think it is. I think the really awful thing is that we can get into that loop of not feeling that we matter much or that we have much value, and therefore we behave in a way that actually doesn't invite other people to value us either. So we get in that self-reinforcing loop. So I think we do have to somehow find the impulse that allows us to take a step outside of that. And that's where sometimes, learning some new skills that can help us take some new steps in a different direction, or actually coming to, sort of really engaging with some of the beliefs that we've been left with, deep inside ourselves, and making a step to actually change those, work with those.
Okay. And so what kind of skills do you look at in the course to deal with confidence issues then?
Well, it's a mixture. It's part of what we do is actually look at those beliefs that we have, even if sometimes we're not really even aware that we've got them. Beliefs that I'm no good, nobody will value what I say, whatever I do, it will turn out badly. Identifying what those beliefs are and seeing what happens inside us if we imagine holding a different belief. With some people, it feels like such a relief to be able to have a choice about believing something more positive that they just grab it and go. Whereas other people, if you suggest they might believe something more positive about themselves and the world, they actually find it quite threatening or quite scary. And then you've got that interesting situation of exploring what it is that makes them reluctant to actually dare to think that, be more confident.
But do you think it's a matter of sort of accepting change? Because a lot of people out there are scared of accepting something different to what they're used to, even though it's horrid what they're used to.
It's familiar. Absolutely, it's familiar. And in an awful kind of way, if you don't think much of yourself, you don't expect much, then you're already in the down position. You can't get knocked down.
Oh gosh,
I know. And sometimes taking the risk to believe that things might go well, open you up to that possibility that you might come a cropper again. You might tumble. So it's making, but it's maybe recognising that. And,
okay. Okay, in a few moments we'll look at assertiveness a little bit more. But let's just have this quick break and we'll come back to that.
24 hours a day. This is Radio Fox.
Bit of Miles Kane there, and we were talking to our assertiveness and confidence guru, Janet Hills. And hello, Janet, how are you doing there?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. Ready for the next question?
Yes, we've been talking about confidence so far. Now, could you please now give us a definition of assertiveness?
Okay, well, I'm going to give you a definition some words that actually came to me when I was teaching it some time ago. That I see assertiveness as valuing myself enough to look after myself well.
Okay. Because, a lot of people would think assertiveness and they think, somebody could be quite rude with that. Is that a common misconception?
It's a very common misunderstanding.
Okay.
And I think sometimes people have this stereotype that if you become assertive, you're forever out there making a nuisance of yourself, criticising this, raising issues, etc. And you might, obviously, as you become more assertive, want to raise issues more than you do. But I think fundamentally, if I'm being assertive, I'm taking on board the responsibility for looking after myself, rather than hoping that other people will spot what I want and do it for me. But doing it well, looking after myself well.
Okay.
And if I do it badly, then I become aggressive.
Okay.
And I'll start sort of demanding things from people and get their backs up. Or I'll become manipulative and sneaky and try and sort of manipulate people by stealth to giving me what I want.
Right.
So it's looking after, knowing what I need, knowing what I want, and knowing when things aren't quite right, and knowing that I can do something to try and make those things change so I get my needs met. And that might involve me in asking someone else if they'll do something or stop doing something.
Okay.
But it might simply involve me deciding to do something myself rather than wait for someone else to notice that I need something.
Okay, so it's twofold really. First step is basically identifying something is not quite right.
Yes.
And secondly is actually acting in an appropriate manner.
That's right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as opposed to sort of maybe acting sort of indirectly or passively or aggressively. But I suppose all people can display all of these traits in one day, can't they?
Yes, they do. Often in amazing rapidity. We can go through the whole range. Sometimes people will start off assertively trying to do something. It doesn't work. They slip into being a bit more manipulative, and then they lose their temper and become aggressive, and then they feel totally bad about that and become passive and apologise. So you can do the whole lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what elements of assertiveness are actually looked at in the course?
Well, the main areas that we look at, that I try and cover, are asking for things, making requests, the opposite of that, which is refusing things, saying no to things that you actually don't want to do. Dealing with anger, because a lot of people only think or see anger just as something negative and bad, but actually it can be a very constructive way of putting your boundaries back.
Constructive for who, though? The person sort of being angry, or the person sort of suffering,
being angered at?
Angered at.
Well, well, if it's done assertively, it's actually okay for both people.
Okay.
Because assertive anger is not the same as the losing your temper, exploding, cruel, anger that most people associate with that word.
I suppose, people do lose their temper. That could be a result of being passive for so long and accepting things for such a long time. That is,
and then finally just exploding, possibly at something that's relatively minor in the scheme of things, just because at that point in time, they've reached the end of their tether. So the poor person opposite them just gets it,
Oh, bless.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah. So, one of the biggies, I think, for somebody who's not so assertive is making or refusing a request, because you did mention that just now.
Yeah.
But please give us details of how we could do that assertively.
Well, if we start with asking for something, one of the classic things that people, especially brought up in this country, tend to do if they want something is they just kind of hint. They'll go into a shop with something that they bought that doesn't work properly or they don't like, and they'll just say, "I bought this here the other day," and sort of stand there looking sort of a bit hopeful or a bit pathetic.
But the shop assistant would ask them,
exactly. Do you want right? We change it exactly. That they'll read their mind.
Okay.
I think often we grew up thinking it was rude to actually say, "Can you exchange it? Could you move your car, please? You're blocking me in." Rather than simply the big hint and the big hope. So asking assertively is just that. It's saying, can you, will you do this, stop doing this, whatever it is.
So it's sort of saying exactly what you would like the other person to do.
Yeah.
And do you have to, a silly question to ask, but do you have to add a please at the end of it? Or,
well,
because I'm thinking I would always add a please.
Yeah,
or
well,
if you could. Or
well, it depends what it is. If it's sort of the first time it's happened, or it's a favour. Certainly, if it's a favour you're asking, could you feed my cat, please? I'm going away this weekend. Yes, of course I'd say please, because I've no right to expect that my neighbour will change everything they're doing to feed my cat. But on the other hand, if it's something that somebody's kept doing that's been irritating you over a while, and they've agreed to stop doing it, and they forget, or they keep doing it again, I think there comes a point when you don't have to say please anymore. It just becomes, stop doing that.
Okay.
Just straightforwardly, look, we've had the discussion, we've had the agreement, now please. Oh, and I've said please. But maybe that's just a habit that comes out. But I don't think we always do have to put lots of, pleasers in, really.
Sort of dress it up like that.
Dress it up and make it nice. No.
Oh, okay. I've got a question here from somebody. What I'll do is I'll just take this quick break and then we'll come back to the question.
Sure.
And that was This Is Love by George Harrison. Hope you enjoyed that one. And I am chatting to Janet Hills, our assertiveness and confidence guru. How does it feel to be a guru in assertiveness and confidence, Janet?
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Yes, keep saying it to me.
Okay. We were talking about assertiveness just before this little song break there.
Yeah.
And, I know one of my things is that I can take something on without actually fully appreciating what I've taken it on.
Yeah.
We're talking about refusing requests and so forth, weren't we?
Yeah.
And sometimes, I have no desire to go back on my word. Now, how can somebody assertively deal with this kind of situation without appearing rude?
Yeah. Well, this is tricky, isn't it? But I think one of the things I'd say to somebody who, you've sort of confessed to actually taking things on without appreciating what you've taken on. Yeah. I think something that you might try, or people who identify with this might try, is actually saying to people when they ask you to do something like, "Let me get back to you on that one." Okay. So you buy yourself some time to think about it, and you interrupt that automatic habit of saying, yes, I'll do that.
Yeah. It's like, I don't want to be seen as being I want to be seen as being accommodating. I don't know why, but I say yes.
Well,
it's a weird one, isn't it?
Well, not really. But I mean, I can't give you a magic answer here, because if you need to feel accommodating, then you will take things on, and it will sometimes be too much.
Right.
But what I would say is, I think we do have a responsibility to look after ourselves. Right. So I think maybe finding a way to say to somebody, that sounds great. I'd love to be able to help if I can.
Right.
Let me just check, and I'll get back to you. And it could just be in 5 minutes or whatever. But I think finding something to interrupt that automatic saying yes. Otherwise, if you do take something on and then you find that it's too much or you can't really do it, in a way you've messed the other person about, if you think about it, as well as you.
And you've gone through all that anguish yourself, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to really have let them down. So I've got to try to remember to say, just give me a minute, or just give me a minute, or just give me a few minutes. Let me just think that through. I'd love to do it, but I just need to check that it fits. I'll be back. I'll get back to you. Okay, that's brilliant advice from you there. I've got another few questions for our assertiveness and confidence guru here. Okay, this is a less than ideal world. So what would be the best approach when the other person isn't willing to listen or thinks they're always right, and it's not actually easy to agree to disagree in that kind of situation? What's the best approach?
Well, I think it can be, rather than trying to get into a sort of almost a contest or a fight to try and get them to see your view, which at that moment in time they're not in a position or willing to do that, it can be quite useful sometimes to say to somebody, I can see how much that matters to you. I see how important that view is to you. So what you're doing is you're not agreeing with them, but you're coming alongside with, seeing how important it is to them.
Right.
Sometimes when people hear you say that to them, even though they're quite full of it and quite dogmatic, they kind of settle a bit, they relax a bit. And then they might hear you when you say, I actually have a different view. Which is really what you're needing to say at a moment like that. But even if they won't sort of settle back a bit, then I think really the thing is to say, well, I see it differently.
Okay. And
not try and get into a fight to get them to accept that, but simply to say it on your own behalf.
Okay, that actually brings me quite nicely to my next question, because this was a point made by one of our listeners, and he's agreed to tell you that he's 27 years old and he's male, and that's as far as it goes. And he said that he can get on one way with friends, like he can be sort of in an assertive manner with friends, yet another with family. He feels that he's sometimes walked over and not listened to. And so what about sort of the older family, like the parents? Aren't they always going to treat him like a child, no matter how old he gets? I mean, is there an element of that as well?
Yes. I mean, again, I think that's really common. That a lot of us find that we're seen differently by different groups of people. And classically, people who've known us all our lives sometimes do struggle to actually really notice that we have actually grown up. We'll always be their little whoever it was to them. So I guess, again, people do it differently, but I guess it's something, like I said with the last question, it's maybe finding a way to say, look, Mum, look, Dad, look, whoever it is, I know that really matters to you. I know that's your view and it works for you. I actually have a different view.
Right.
I know that's hard for you to hear sometimes, but we see it differently. Right. So something like that sometimes, rather than getting into an argument and trying to make the other person see it your way. Okay.
So do you think it's pretty much that's the same thing you'd say to sort of everyone? Is it a hard and fast rule, would you say, with everybody?
Not well. I think we're all different, so our styles of interacting with people are different. So I think what I try and teach is some basic principles that work across the board. When we're learning new skills, I tend to give some sort of a form of words that people might want to practice just to get them started ways to ask or say no. But after that, I think people find their own way to say it from themselves that actually feels genuine for them and is relevant to the person they're speaking to.
Right, so I guess what you're trying to really say is that basically each person is individual and they need to work out what works best for them.
Yeah. I think in terms of the way the wording and the timing is always very different. I think the principles are the same, but how they actually look when they get spoken out loud can be very different. Yeah.
Okay, let's listen to a bit of Michael Jackson now. We'll come back with a few questions in just a moment. Bit of good old MJ there. So, do you enjoy that one, Janet?
I did, yes.
Oh, okay, right. We were talking about assertiveness and confidence to our assertiveness and confidence guru, Janet Hills. And we were speaking about... we were talking about whether it's appropriate to deal with everybody in the same way, weren't we? And we actually had an interesting question in here. And this is from a lady, Mary, and she's actually in hospital at the moment. She's 46 years old. She doesn't want to give any more details than that, but fair enough. And she's had a lot of health problems. She's been in and out of hospital over the past couple of years. And she's found a lot of family and friends have helped her. She's very grateful, but feels forever indebted to many people. And she finds it very difficult to say, I mean, again, what we were talking about, to say no to anyone. And it's at the cost of her own mental and physical well-being at times. And is there any advice for her? Because, I mean, the question I was going to ask was, say something like, it could potentially be a very lonely time for some people, patients who are probably adjusting to their new circumstances and a greater reliance on others and so forth. I mean, what advice would you give to people in that situation?
Well, it's difficult to sort of give advice because everyone's situation's different. But I guess from what you're saying, it sounds as if this lady's got to the point where sometimes she actually wants to try something herself or be a bit more independent, but doesn't want to appear ungrateful or rude. So it could be that learning how to say no to somebody so that the person you're refusing gets the feeling that you actually appreciate their offer and their concern and their wish to be helpful.
Right.
So you say to somebody, I really appreciate your asking or offering to do that. It's great. I've really loved the way you've cared for me all this time. However, and the word however often sounds better than but. However, I quite like to try this myself this time, just to see how it goes. So sometimes refusing something in that way, so the person you're refusing feels that...
Doesn't get hurt either.
No, doesn't get hurt. They don't have to, because you're not refusing them. You're just saying, you're saying, I appreciate your intention. It's your specific request that isn't quite right this time, that's all. And just daring to find words to say that. I appreciate your thought. I really love it that you think about me. However, on this occasion, I really like to say no. Because I'd like to try it differently.
I've actually written however on my piece of paper and underlined it, because that's a fantastic advice for anyone, isn't it?
It's better than but, because if you say but, people brace themselves. They think, oh, here it comes. But,
So what small steps could a person take towards becoming more assertive and confident?
Well, again, it's different for every individual, rather than giving a sort of rule across the board. But I think one small step could be simply to start noticing themselves a little bit more. Because a lot of us work on a kind of almost an automatic basis. We do things very habitually and don't even spot. And just notice those moments when they perhaps automatically refuse something. You know, somebody's asked them, would you like to do this? Would you like to join us? And before they've thought about it, they're saying no, but really they'd like to. And also those times when maybe they'd love to offer something or join in but don't. So I think what I'm really saying is just take some time just to sort of notice yourself. Do what you normally do, but just notice. And you might just catch those little moments when you'd want to say something but don't, to join in or to offer, but equally those moments when you want to say no and don't. And there, once you spot those moments, those little sort of indicators, you can start to sort of build up a bit of courage to do something differently.
Okay, what I'm reading from what you're saying there is, you're saying notice yourself. Isn't that from a person that wants to change or wants to get there? Yeah. So you have to want to be able to do this. Yeah. As a first rule, you've got to want to be able to. You've
got to want to do it, I think. Yeah. Otherwise, it won't mean anything, or it won't work, or you're just doing it because someone else thinks you should. Yeah, I think you've got to be interested and at least be curious, really, about what might happen if you did. Yeah.
Okay. And so what strategies do you actually use in your teaching style? I mean, so how do you make this an interesting subject for people to learn?
Well, what I do quite a lot is demonstrate by sort of showing people various scenarios. So I'll, rather than just talking and describing things in the way we have to do here, I'll actually I'll offer myself as an example of someone who's in a queue and somebody butts in, or it's got an internal sort of dialogue going on in their heads, or is a person who's having their boundary invaded. So I'll actually set up a demonstration of some form of that in the class, in the group, and then I'll ask them, if they want to, some of the students in the class, some of the participants, to take part as well. So I kind of show people, I try to sort of get people to see things as well as just hear my words. Because I think, although, we take information in on all these different levels, I think if people see something as well as hear something, they remember it more. And then the other thing...
A lot of people are visual learners, aren't they?
Yeah, they're visual, or they have at least the two channels.
Yeah.
I think somebody once said that a huge percentage of what we hear we forget. What we see, we tend to remember a bit longer. And then the other thing I do is invite people to try things out themselves in pairs or in small groups.
Oh, so is it almost like role play?
It's a bit like role play, yes. I tend not to use that word because it scares people.
Okay.
And they think it's like acting or something.
I'm thinking of drama classes and
yes, exactly. I know, where you get, you just get set up to feel stupid and fail again.
Aww.
But I think if people try things out and actually do something, they learn more and they remember more. So yeah, that's what I try and do.
Right. Yeah. So do you think that's a bit more effective way of remembering things if you actually get them to participate in role plays or
get up, move around, do things? And we do some talking as well. Come back to the whole group and share what's happened and questions and answers. And I'll give information from the front if you like. I use flip chart, use diagrams, but certainly get people involved, trying things out as well.
All I can say is, God, if every tutor was like Janet. I remember maths classes and so science classes at school, and very different. So what can a student hope to gain from attending such a course?
Well, hopefully some skills, some actual, real sort of rememberable skills to take away and use in certain situations, or imagine or watch situations and imagine doing differently. So something practical like that. But also, I think the possibility of seeing things differently, of just watching themselves more acutely. And looking out for what they might do differently, rather than being stuck with what they do that isn't working for them. Okay.
So is there any homework to do on the courses? Because many people might not wish to attend a course if they think, oh my God, I don't want to go back to homework and so forth.
No, well, there's certainly nothing written, so nothing like homework in that sense. No essays to do or work to hand in.
Right.
No, basically what I say to people at the end of each session is, go away, think about what we've done, watch yourself, watch other people, notice things.
Right.
That might be all you do, but you might find yourself doing something differently, almost without expecting to. So you might get a little bit of a practice as well. But I think it's just take it out into your everyday life and see what happens.
Now, I can imagine there might be a lot of people out there thinking, I'd love to attend that, I'd love to do that kind of course.
Yeah.
But they might be a little bit scared.
Yeah.
What would you say to people in that situation?
Well, what would I say? I want to say, come along. It's really not that scary.
I can see Janet's really nice, so
yeah, you'll find a lot of like-minded people who are also they maybe do very different jobs, very different work, but they've all got in common this wanting to sort of find out more about themselves in that way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not scary. I don't put you on the spot. I don't make you feel stupid at all.
Oh, that's good. So I believe you'll be running the same course again, How to Become More Assertive and Confident, at the People Centre, is that right, in September? Yes,
the People Centre, which is on Belgrade Gate, just at the back of Sainsbury's, starting in October, Tuesday, October the 2nd, in the evening. Yes.
Okay, and how long does that run for then?
That's going to run for 10 weeks.
Okay,
so
10
it'll
weeks.
be up to Christmas, basically. Yeah.
Okay, that's That's good.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
And another one, I believe, managing conflict. Is that in January next year?
That's hopefully that will run in January. So people who've maybe tried the assertiveness course and want to do a bit more, sort of taking these ideas a bit further, can enrol for that as well.
Okay, will they both be at the People Centre then?
They're both at the People Centre, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
and there's obviously advice on how to get in touch with the People Centre on the internet and so forth.
There is. The actual contact you need to have for that is the WEA.
WEA.
The Workers' Educational Association. They're the organising body that employ me to run these courses. And if you want to contact them, because they'll have a brochure coming out probably fairly soon over the summer, then you can go to their website, which is wea.org.uk, or you can phone them, which is a Leicester number 0116 251 9740.
Okay, and I've had a very interesting question in here, very late on in the day. We've got a few minutes left, but we'll try.
Yeah.
Basically, somebody has told me, he's in the hospital at the moment, there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness.
Yep.
How do you ensure that a confident person doesn't appear as somebody cocky? Is that, would you agree with that?
Well, I actually think that somebody who's becomes overconfident and cocky, very often, paradoxically, doesn't feel that confident inside. It's a way of actually covering it up. I think when we're genuinely confident, we come from a real position of liking ourselves.
Oh, okay.
In a genuine way. And I think not a sort of forced way to sort of hide our inadequacies. And I think when we're coming from that genuine place of liking ourselves, warts and all, we actually feel much more warmly towards other people as well. So we don't want to dominate or talk over them or anything. So I think that fine line is less likely to get crossed if you come from that genuine place of confidence.
Yeah, that's very interesting, yeah. Now, is there anything else you would like to add today, Janet, that you haven't already said?
Well, I think maybe the final thing will be to say to people is that, change can happen. We can change. Because a lot of the things about us that we don't like aren't who we really are. They're just habits that we've learnt.
Oh,
so
even if you're really old, can change still happen?
You can change them. You really,
I guess if you
really
want
can.
it.
You've got to want to, yes, and you've got to work on the reasons that the fear inside you that might not want you to change, that wants you to stay not very confident. But yeah, take heart. Change can happen. So if you and it can be fun as well. Yeah. So take a risk.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, anybody who's sitting there in hospital thinking they really want to attend one of Janet's courses, you will be in the People Centre, won't you, from September onwards? So
definitely.
obviously you can look up People Centre and the WEA,
and the WEA
on the internet and find out details. Or you can always get in touch with Fox, and I'd be happy to pass those details on to yourselves. And thank you very much to our assertiveness and confidence guru, Janet Hills. Thank you.